You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey, Days of Our Lives fans. Today we're looking at some of the incredible real-life romances of actors who met and worked together on the NBC soap. Some of these you may know about, some you may not. One lucky lady found love twice on the set, and she actually married two different hunks from Days, and one of those marriages is still going strong. It's Belinda from Soap Dirt, and before we dive into all this, please click subscribe. All right, so we're going to start with a couple you know about because we all cried last year when we lost actor Bill Hayes and then also had to say goodbye to his character Doug Williams. Not only were Julie and Doug one of the longest running soap opera couples in the history of the genre, but their real life marriage was absolutely couple goals. It lasted 5 decades until he passed away. Susan Seaforth was already working on Days of Our Lives as Julie Olson when Bill Hayes was cast as con man Doug Williams in 1970 with Susan as one of his main scene partners. They kissed on screen on July 23rd, 1970, and that was their first kiss as an off-screen couple as well. Susan married Bill at his home on October 12th, 1974, and their characters Doug and Julie got married on Days 2 years later using the same vows they used in real life. Their very long marriage lasted up until Bill Hayes passed away January 12th, 2024 at age 98. And at the time he passed, Susan and Bill had been married 50 years. Days of Our Lives aired Bill's final episode in July of 2024, and Doug Williams' character passed away peacefully in his sleep in November 2024. This has to be the most epic on and off-screen soap opera romance of all time. Now, let's talk about a pair of on and off-screen lovers from the 1990s, Crystal Chappelle and Michael Sabatino. These two played Carly Manning and Lawrence Alamain in the early 90s. Their characters' romance was on and off again and pretty rambunctious. You may remember from your Ancient Days history that Lawrence's wackadoo Aunt Vivian Alamain actually buried Carly alive to avenge Lawrence. And although Carly and Lawrence weren't destined for happily ever after, the actors that played them absolutely were. They both exited Days in the 90s. They got married in early 1997. They have 2 sons who are now grown and in their 20s. Crystal and Michael are still happily hitched. Even now, they've been married for nearly 30 years. Sadly, Crystal revealed last year that Michael has been diagnosed with Parkinson's, but he says he's doing well and still going strong. Now, let's talk about an on-screen couple whose Days of Our Lives romantic pairing was cut short by tragedy, but the actors are still going strong in real life. That is Casey Moss and True O'Brien, who played JJ Deveraux and Paige Larson. And of course, Casey is still appearing on Days as JJ right now, and he's involved with Gabby Hernandez. But back in 2014, Casey and True met on the Days set. JJ and Paige fell hard for each other while she was a college student and he worked for the DEA. Unfortunately, necktie killer Ben Weston murdered Paige and JJ was devastated. In real life, Casey and True began dating in 2015, the same year that Paige met her awful end in the dorm shower on the soap. Casey proposed to True in June 2022, and they are planning a May 2025 wedding. Now, real quick, I want to talk about a couple who appeared on Days of Our Lives at the same time, but whose characters were never involved. In fact, had their characters been involved, it would have been wildly inappropriate. So the two actors I'm talking about are Leo Howard and Natasha Hall. Leo Howard plays Tate, a high school senior, but the actor is a decade older than his Days alter ego. Leo is 27 and Tate should be 17, 18 years old at this point. So Leo's real life honey, Natasha Hall, is 7 years older than him. She's 34 right now, and she appeared in a few 2024 episodes that filmed in 2023 as Sloan Petersen when Jessica Serfati had to miss work. So the mid-30s lawyer Sloan dating high schooler Tate would have been pretty icky and awkward, especially considering that Sloan was getting frisky with his uncle Eric. But a few months after Leo's real-life love, Natasha, appeared on Days of Our Lives, They got hitched. That was in September of 2024. Meanwhile, his soap character Tate refused to marry pregnant fellow high schooler Sophia. Messy, messy soap stuff. But Leo Howard's at least very happy in real life with his wife. Next, we're going to talk about a pair of exes who met on Days of Our Lives, and stick around till the end, by the way, to hear about the actress who met two husbands behind the scenes. We're getting there. But the exes I want to discuss are Brandon Beemer and Nadia Bjorlin. The pair actually met by happenstance a few years before they worked together on Days of Our Lives, but they never dated when they first met. They began dating in 2006, and they had overlapping runs on the NBC soap in 2008. Of course, Brandon plays Sean Douglas Brady, and Nadia plays Chloe Lane. But then Brandon left Days in 2008 to go over to Bold and the Beautiful. But the duo kept dating until they split in 2013, several years later. In the interim, their romance was heavily featured on the reality series Dirty Soap. If you have not seen it, I think it only got one season, but it was so good. A reality show about soap opera actors' dramatic personal lives. A lot of the episodes are on YouTube. Their relationship seemed doomed, even though Nadia and Brandon dated for 7 years. I remember when they were on Dirty Soap together that Nadia's mom hated Brandon. And she raged at Nadia that if she married Brandon and they had kids, that she would actually kill her daughter. So with Mama Bjorlin taking a hard stance against them, their breakup seemed inevitable. But now Nadia is happily married to the guy she met after she and Brandon broke up. And speaking of couples on the reality show Dirty Soap, there was another pair that was also on Days of Our Lives. And this couple's kind of interesting because they were a real life romance who ended before their characters interacted on Days. I'm talking about Farah, Fath, and John Paul Lavoisier. They actually met on the set of One Life to Live and started dating, and then they starred on Dirty Soap as a couple in 2011. But it wasn't until 2015 that JP Lavoisier joined the cast of Days of Our Lives in his initial run as Philip Kiriakis. And Farah Fath, if you don't remember, played Mimi Lockhart. So it was weird because Philip and Mimi had a child together without intending to or having been involved in any way that would make it happen naturally. There were two couples that were trying to conceive by IVF, and Mimi wound up implanted with Philip's sperm thanks to a dirty plot when it should have actually been Shawn's baby in her belly and Philip's sperm should have been in Belle's belly. So Mimi and Philip later signed away their rights to the baby that they unintentionally created, and the surrogate kept the kid. So the upside is, after their real life split, Farah and JP didn't have to get romantic on the day set as their characters. That might have been awkward. Before we get to the actress with 2 days hubbies, let's talk about the ex-Chad DiMera actor Casey Deedrick and ex-Melanie Jonas actress Molly Burnett. Their characters were both on and off-screen loves, as the actors were as well. Chad and Melanie were together in 2011 and 2012, and they were worried about it crushing Abigail, and of course it did wind up that way, even though she walked away from Chad at that point. But the actors met on the day set back in 2009, and they dated for about a year. But Casey and Molly's real-life romance fizzled out before Chad and Melanie hit their big romantic high point. And in fact, the actors fell out of their romantic feelings long before their characters fell hard and got engaged. But then Melanie dumped Chad, left town, and then his role was later recast with Billy Flynn. And now, finally, let's talk about the actress who found love twice backstage at Days of Our Lives. That's Arianne Zucker, who played Nicole Walker up until last year. The first time Ari found love on the set, it was with ex-Brady Black actor Kyle Lowder. And of course, Brady was later recast with Eric Martsolf in the role, and Kyle flipped over to the role of Rex Brady when he later returned to Days. But back when Kyle played Brady, He and Nicole had a very rocky road, but the actors themselves had an epic love story behind the scenes. So much so that Kyle and Ari got married in 2002, but then Kyle left Days in 2005 and he went over to Bold and the Beautiful for a few years. Their off-screen marriage started to fall apart and they split in 2007. And much like Brady and Nicole's off and on status, they then decided to try again, and in real life, the couple reunited in 2008. They turned around and had a daughter in 2009, but then their marriage fell apart again and Ari and Kyle split for good in 2014. And just as Ari and Kyle were calling it quits, Ari sparked with another Days actor, Shawn Christian, who played Daniel Jonas to her Nicole on the soap. Daniel and Nicole were madly in love, and the actors, of course, had known each other for a while behind the scenes while her marriage to Kyle Lowder was falling apart. Ari and Shawn started dating in 2014, the same year that she and Kyle split for good, but their working relationship as Nicole and Daniel ended 2 years later in 2016 when his character died as a result of a car crash caused by drunk Eric Brady, and Nicole's ex Brady, at that point played by Eric Martzoff, wound up getting his heart. So after Shawn Christian left the soap when his character died, he and Ari still kept going strong as a couple. They got engaged in 2021 and got married in August 2024, a few weeks after Ari's final episode as Nicole Walker aired in July of 2024.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.